question.
I was just wondering how employees found out about Sailor Moon and what they have
For we all have different experiences because you guys auditioned. You already had the jobs before I did. Yeah, here. How did you? Who got hired first? Did you get first?
So I was one of the first ones cast because I was in that first round of auditions. So it started out, basically they said, oh, we have a new cartoon that's come in from Japan. So we're going to be dubbing it into English. A Canadian company has gotten the rights for a project called Sailor Moon. So they put a general casting call out to the entire city. 459,000 actors appeared at the casting that first day. So it was a bit of a zoo. We all wanted to be Sailor Moon, so we all read for Sailor Moon. And as I've mentioned a number of times, I, as you know, didn't get Sailor Moon. And it was a big blow because I really wanted to be Sailor Moon. We all wanted to be Sailor Moon because Sailor Moon rocks and had the most lines, right? So of course you always want the part with the most lines. So as it turned out, I didn't get Sailor Moon, but I got Sailor Jupiter, and I was really, really pleased because it turned out, I said, I think that she's my favorite scout anyway, so I'm really glad that I got her. So that was my story.
We didn't all want to be Sailor Moon. No, I came in late in the game, as I said before, and the original Tuxedo Mask was doing voiceover stuff, and he said, you have to audition for this. This is a anime, and back then it was called a cartoon, because now it's not cool to say cartoon, it's anime, but, and I said, oh, I don't think so, and then when I walked in, I had none of us had any idea what this series was about, because we literally looked on screen, and it was like karaoke, following the words, screaming, talking. We didn't even know what they were talking about. And Sailor Mars, I went right for Sailor Mars. Sailor Moon, I didn't even know who she was. Didn't matter. And I booked Sailor Mars, and it was the best thing. And I agree. I feel like I'm very similar to Ray. So I feel like, yeah, and that's how that worked out for me. And then oh, do you like how we've just yeah.
So it was me. Yeah. So. Reno Romano, he did the first Tuxedo Mask till episode 10, and then he got some work in New York or something.
No, I left for LA.
Left for LA. So I was doing not much in my life at that point. I had just auditioned for another series, Flash Gordon, and this was just as I started doing these things, and I ended up getting the role of Flash Gordon in the series. So I just got 26 episodes as the lead character, and I was insanely shocked because it was my real first go at it. So that was cool. I had a series, and then I got a call saying, hey, they want you to read for this thing called Sailor Moon. So I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know what that is. Don't worry about it, just go down to the studio. So I was driving a motorcycle at that time, drove down, got off, took my helmet off, walked in, blah, 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 what am I doing here? And they said, oh, we just want you to just read this stuff. Now, they didn't have the projection for me at all. All I had was I walked into a studio, and they just had some lines, and they had a guide track from Reno, and the line, hey meatballhead, what are you doing here? It was his line. I never said it on camera, but it's my hook line because that's the one that got me into the job. And so they basically let me hear this line, hey meatballhead, what are you doing here? I thought for sure you'd be over there with your friends, especially since you're acting like total fools. And I thought, oh, that sounds kind of cool. He goes, well, can you do something like that, but just kind of keep it still in that area? I said, yeah, okay. So they gave me some script, and I read it, and I was like, oh, you know, my neck was like going nutty because I was like all nervous, and like my jugular was freaking out. I walked out, I'm like, that sucked. And then I was really worried because I knew I had this other job that I just booked, like, I hope that doesn't happen to me there. So I'm driving on my motorcycle, and it was back in the day when you wore a pager. There was no cell phone yet. And I remember I was driving, and I wasn't used to having the pager go off, and I nearly swerved off the road. Like, oh, what the heck? And I looked down, and it was my agent, called him, and they said, you got the job. And that's how I got Tuxedo Mask. So.
And I, of course, was the third Sailor Moon. So I went in there, and I had heard it already. My nieces watched Sailor Moon, and I'd always be like, I could totally do that voice. Come on, you guys, listen to me. I sound like her, come on. Now I can't even do it right now. I'm losing my voice to that. Anyways, so I get a call, oh, they're having auditions for Sailor Moon. And I was like, oh, cool, all right. And so I was like, well, what characters are they doing? They went Sailor Moon. I'm Oh, I could do her. Oh yeah. I could do that. I told my niece I could. So the day that the auditions came, I was suddenly so sick. I haven't been that sick in a very long time. It was one of those colds that just goes, and I could feel myself getting sicker and sicker. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. I'm like, I still have a chance at this point, and I can't even talk. So I just went into the audition and just didn't talk to anybody. Normally I'd be like, blah, 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 talking to people that I know, because they're all friends in there. And I sat there silently, and they're all looking at me like, Valentine's really itchy today. She's not even talking to us. Just hearing my voice. So I went in there not even knowing if I could get a sound out. And what they did was they gave me the script. They said, okay, here, read it over. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play you a line, and then we want you to do it. And I'm a bit of a mimic. I can do that well. I can hear a line and go, okay. So they would play it, and I would just say it right back. I could hear all the ups and downs of Terry's voice. I could hear it all going up and down and go, okay, I know exactly how to do that. And I would do it exactly like that. And somehow, because I had this cold, my nose was stuffed up, and her voice is a lot more nasal. Like, her voice is more in the upper part of her face. So I was able to channel this no problem. And it was like, oh, and you know, the director's going, oh, I can see her on the phone, exactement comme Terry, it's exactly like this. And I'm like, Brendan, keep going, let's go, let's go. So they gave me a whole bunch of lines. They'd play Terry's line, and then I would say it again, and it was easy. And then I got the part, and it was awesome. This is like, yeah, and then I went, now I have to do this. And Terry's not reading for me right now. I have to do this on my own. And it was not in the day of the internet where I could just sit there and listen and go onto YouTube and listen to all the different things and go, okay, now I remember. I was just sitting at home going, I don't even know what she sounds like anymore. This is crazy. I actually said to my husband, we went by where this video store used to be, and I said, remember going into this video store and asking if they have a Sailor Moon tape so that I could take it home and listen to it and go, what does she sound like? So when I actually went in to do the actual record, I just keep going, can you play her thing again? And I'd have to try and find these things on my own, and it was tough. It was very, very tough. And letting go of what Terry did and making it my own was the toughest thing, and just going, I have to just find something in this that's me, that's organically me. And that's when I really felt like I was sort of falling into the character a lot more. So it took me a few episodes for sure.